All right, can I have your attention? I want to thank you all for being here today. Thank you all so very, very much. Let the records so indicate that Dr. Bustles and her family, they're out of the country. Of course, we pray for safe return home. So much. Just before we call the roll, gee whiz, we don't have two
I
people.
know. Even I could call the roll.
But I think the records just need to reflect that we've had a roll call. Levity? My friend, would you call the roll?
Sure.
Mr. Brown
Here.
And Mr. McDowell?
Yes, thank you so much. Just before we get started, if you would, just bow your heads for just a moment. For this city and for all of its benefits, for the grace and for mercy, we pray for this city of ours, we pray for this state of ours. And particularly, we pray for Israel and Gaza as they confront each other in a historical war that seems to be continuing to be an issue within the confines of this nation. Touch each one of us, allow us to feel your touch and your sensitivity. We ask it in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I think everybody has an agenda. And of course, for those again who are here, I just want to follow up on a discussion from our last meeting pertaining to tenants' rights. You guys come on in. Regarding tenants' rights, HUD and state housing assist renters and tenants with their rights in collaboration with them and in working to provide a kind of opportunity for them to understand what those rights are and that sort of thing. Felicia Kilgore, we're just so happy you're here. I'm gonna have you stand in just a minute.
Okay.
Felicia Kilgore, who has been a part of that movement and a part of what tenants' rights are, will come and give us some information. I think historically, and what we've heard in the last few years, is that we were going on a path of trying to establish tenants' rights on our own, and that's not in our wheelhouse. It's in HUD's wheelhouse. And so Felicia, why don't you come and talk to us about tenants' rights, if you would?
Let me stay right here.
Yeah, to the mic, yes, ma'am.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. So, with the request from council, as well as Ms. Wilson, that they asked us to inquire about scheduling, getting more information as relates to tenants' rights. And so we did. We reached directly out to HUD, our local representatives here, Ms. Christine Foy and Ms. Deborah Dusenberry. They're local representatives, and they was very much willing to meet with us. We met with them on October the 12th to discuss various options as relates to how we can provide information to residents, not only here in Richland County, the city of Columbia, but also Lexington as well. How we can get the information out to a lot of the folks that are living in homes, rental units that are supported, subsidized by HUD. And so, with the incident that took place with the colony, I think it is definitely important to notify not only those residents, but also the other residents that live in the other subsidized units that's supported by HUD. So we have actually went ahead and moved forward to schedule a meeting place to conduct the session. We're going to meet at the Columbia Convention Center. We've got it scheduled in October, not October, but in January the 18th. We've got scheduled the Carolina Place, the Carolina Room there. That holds about 143 participants. And so I think that's a nice number. We do want to entertain the option to have it, I say televised, but like Zoom, so to speak, virtual options, so that for the ones that are unable to attend the session, and the session will take place from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. So it's a 2-hour session. It's going to be a lot of information that we'll be providing in that 2-hour session. So it's going to be jam-packed with information. So with that being said, we talked about, the various topics that we can share, provide. So some of the topics that we want to ensure that we hone in on is fair housing. So HUD is actually working with a representative from their wheelhouse to bring someone with them to talk about fair housing. Also, we want to discuss tenants' rights and tenants' responsibilities, okay? They are also responsible for utilizing, those units. And so we want to ensure that they are aware that we want to also hold them responsible when they occupy those units, but also provide information to the landlords, their rights and their responsibilities for maintaining those units as well. So we're going to hone in on those options, topics. And then also we want to invite our code enforcement here with the city, definitely have them there as a point of contact and share some information when they should reach out to them for assistance as relates to some of the conditions of these units that they're living in. So we're going to have them there. And then we also want to have, our partners from Lexington County Community Development, also Richland County Community Development there to support these efforts to help provide information as well. And then we also have them to set up information booths. We will share as much information as we can within the 2 hours, but we want to also make sure that they can pick up some information with them and take it home, and so they can ensure they read through it and digest it better. So we're planning this event. We're going to engage PR to help us promote it, advertise it. Of course, we're going to engage our police officers to kind of pass out flyers in these various neighborhoods as well. Our staff will pass out flyers in the various neighborhoods. And of course, when we attend various events that we have scheduled, neighborhood meetings and things of that nature, we will share and announce this event as well. One thing that Ms. Foy did hone in on during our conversation is that they will be speaking from HUD, not necessarily from market rate units. Okay, they'll be speaking from the side of subsidized units. They will be able to share some information as it relates to, market rate units and concerns that residents may have, but they want to be careful to ensure that they are honing in on the HUD subsidized units. Any questions?
Felicia, let me just ask this question. Part of what we're gonna do in January is a basic tentative, just talking through what tenants' rights are as it relates to fair housing.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Now, who are the invitees? Who would normally wanna come? Is this a community function? And I think Pam and I talked a little bit about whether or not, I think I may have asked whether it was just managers or whether it was open to everybody.
We want to open it to everyone, but
Okay.
totally highly encourage the residents that lives in these units to come as well. If they're unable to attend the session, but definitely being able to, log in and be able to listen in via Zoom as an option as well.
Okay. How do we spread that word? Through media?
We-
What we do here in the city or what?
Yes, absolutely. We definitely want to get PR to support us and back us with this. We're going to share it with our partner lenders as well. so that they are aware that this session is being planned, so that they can also spread it within their clientele as well.
Have we designated a place?
Yes, sir. It's the Columbia Convention Center.
Convention Center, okay.
It's the Carolina Room. Carolina Media Room is what it's called. And it accommodates 143 approximately guests.
Reverend McDowell, it's also in your packet, an outline
I didn't see that, I'm
yes,
sorry.
sir. It's an outline of what Ms. Kilgore has just gone over with us, for us. In addition to spreading the word, she also talked about police officers and other, community development staff passing out flyers at community events and in the neighborhoods where, you have subsidized housing, so that they're aware. They don't have to just see it on the news or hear it on the radio, which will be things that I'm sure PR will push. But in addition to that, they'll actually be passing out flyers so that people can have that information. It's on the second page, Reverend McDowell. It's just a little one-sheeter, little outline,
That's it.
that right there. It just talks about the location, the date, and
Yeah,
and like she said, it was gonna be January
18th
18th at the convention center
on a Thursday.
on the Thursday,
Okay.
from 6 to 8.
Sounds good.
And thank you for doing this. I think
You're
it's
welcome.
important, because I think what's, this thing's kind of taking on a little bit of a life of its own now.
Yeah.
So I got people now, I got landlords calling me saying,
That's right.
what are you guys doing? And the answer is nothing.
Right.
But it's, what we want to do is educate everybody, and we want people to be aware of their rights, and we want this to be a balance between the tenant and the landlord, but we also want, we're just trying to build in and explain the fairness of the relationship between the tenant and the landlord. That's what I tell people all the time, and I would encourage, if you guys get messages from people, what I'm doing now is saying, send me an email, put in, detail it, short and sweet, what are your concerns, and I'll get back to you. And I haven't gotten an email yet, but if I get one, we'll address it. But I think it's important that we actually are doing this and
Absolutely.
just getting people on the structured relationship on what to expect.
Yep.
But 99% of the people are doing it right, so.
Well, we didn't particularly want it to be exclusively in our wheelhouse. We're glad HUD has its hands in explaining that and for the community to understand that. I think it's critical and very important. So I appreciate you doing that in January for us.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I just couldn't find the information. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any other questions? Not hearing any? Thank you so very much. The second thing on our agenda, of course, is our honorary naming policies. As you know, a few months ago, we initiated a moratorium on signage and, all right, let me get through this sidebar over here.
Just all this paper that I've shared with you all. I think I've got a little carried away and duplicated some.
I noticed. Thank you very much
Poor
for your.
trees.
Thank you very much for your hard work and for what you do for us and for the staff. Another thing that we wanted to follow up today is, of course, our honorary naming provisions. With several things we need to discuss as it relates to honorary naming. As you know, back in 2017,
Yes, sir.
this process was initiated by Mayor Bob Coble and the council at this time. And what we've been doing for the last 5 years, 6 years, we've been operating under that policy and under the form that we've been using. What we wanted to do was to declare this moratorium to set some parameters on how this should look and what we should do. We initiated at our last meeting or the meeting before that, I think, Peter and Oddity were given the applicational forms, suggestions were made, and of course, we entered those suggestions on this new applicational form. Now, I understand that Peter has a small addition we need to make.
It's already been done.
It's
It's already in here.
Is it-
And the
is it-
the only clarification really was where it says the checklist, council members, district, and I put one at-large sponsor. So basically,
That's correct.
not both at-large, so I just want to make sure that was clear. So it's one at-large council person to be a co-sponsor for the project. And I think what that does is it just raises the bar this much and puts a little more effort into it. And I'm a big believer that any process that only has yes as the answer isn't much of a process.
No, it's, well, we know that well now.
So I think what this does is I think it just raises the bar. It makes it, more special for this type of, attribute for anybody who is so willing of it.
Okay,
So Reverend McDowell, in
Yes, ma'am.
addition to, that, Councilman Brown pointed out, they also made some edits to the time frame, just giving a little bit more time in order for the application to be reviewed and everything to be in order before that naming of either a building or a room, takes place. I also added on the back, there's a few more adjustments with, referencing to the district, referencing to adding the name of the at-large district member who's the sponsor. And then we also added, an approval process by, facilities, public works, or parks and recreation. We put an other, just so that we make sure that that gets checked as far as what it will take to actually, put that sign out or put a placard on the building or whatever it would take in order to assess the request and make sure that we're able to, put it into play. So we made sure that we added that in addition to the form.
well, and I appreciate that, Pam. One of the big issues, of course, we had was, of course, the naming process. We've done this historically seemed like forever. And what we wanted to do was to make sure this application would represent the entire city. And that it could not just be done in one day. There had to be a vetting process. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Is that right, Peter?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that it had to be a vetting process. Now, we've added what we needed to add on this applicational form, which in so many words, sort of minor to what we did in 2017, is that right?
So yes, sir, there was a policy that was revised.
It
was
gives it more
revised.
accountability
Yeah,
with the
that's
new
right,
form. Yeah,
So there was the policy was revised in
17.
17, and that policy outlines the process for the naming and goes into detail as to that the application has to be completed, the council members have to approve it, the community has to approve it, and so that process is outlined. And whenever someone requested it, they were given a copy of this policy. So they knew, the guidelines of the policy, and then the application had to be submitted.
Okay. All right. I think the process and the applicational form as it relates to and I'm looking at this twofold, the honorary naming and of course the building, because I want to get into that a little bit. If we could consensually agree upon this.
I think it's a big improvement and I'm all for it.
Okay, very good.
And I think we've handled it in a reasonable amount of time and not dragging this out. So I think we're ready to get back to business.
Yeah, let's get back into business. I mean, gee whiz, I think I probably did more of these things than anybody. So
You probably got a stack of these at home.
I got a list of those things. So consensually, can we agree then that we that we lift the moratorium just on street namings?
Does that have to go to council?
Yeah,
Yeah.
all this gotta go. All this gotta go. What the report that I will make is that we've revised this
Yes, sir.
and that, with some additions to make this application more clarifying and more, with a real sense of accountability, we want the council to approve this.
Yes, sir, and I will email it to council members. I did get an email back from Dr. Bustles while she's been away.
Okay.
She's been working, and so she did see the new revised draft that.
She's okay with
And
that?
yes, sir, in her email,
She,
she,
you okay with that?
Sure.
All right, if we could do that, and I want to do it individually, because there's some building issues that I do want to talk about in terms of naming process.
okay, so we'll check that off. So we have this
Can we check
form
this off?
completed. You will update council at the next council meeting that the form has been revised.
Yes, ma'am.
And I will email the form to them.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
that's our first task, so
That's the first
you ready
thing.
to move on
Oh, I
to the
see.
second task? The second task, you were talking about, a request that was made from some citizens that came to the last meeting. So you ready for that
Yeah.
next?
And I want to talk freely and openly about this. There was a request that names be placed, large letters on buildings, indicating the person's name. And I want to be very, very clear about this. I particularly, and I want to say.
You know I'm in the sign business. So,
Well, that's why I didn't ask him to agree with me. I'm not sure whether or not that's the best policy for each building. I think it really sets a precedence. We've got for Hyatt Park, of course, I think that there are 2 signs already there for Mr. Moss and Mrs. Arun for, who's the lady? What's the lady? What's her name?
Just one sign on the inside of Hyde Park.
From Mr. Mouse.
For Mr. Moss, yeah.
Correct.
All right, is there another room there, Mr. Simon? Yeah, get to the mic. But we had to put a sign on you to get to the mic.
So there's just a sign on the inside indicating that the multi-purpose center is named after Leroy Moss. That's
correct.
already in place.
And I
Yes, sir.
think we already started using Mr. Moss? I heard that I think in a radio announcement, and I think it was probably referencing what Trevon did this past weekend as it related to Hyatt Park, Henry Moss Center.
You
or
may have
something like
referenced the Leroy Moss multi-purpose center, yes, sir.
Yeah. I think the request is of such as that we place his name on the building.
Yes, sir.
And not have a plaque there, so indicating that. Could it not be that that plaque could be taken from the inside and placed in the door, on the outside door?
It could be.
I think, and I'm sorry, Henry, I think we started something that we would probably have to go back and eat crow afterwards, and that's not taking anything from the sign business.
kids need shoes.
Papa needs some drinks. Can a sign, a plaque, a bronze plaque be placed on that building or the entrance of that building so indicate Mr. Moss's name?
It could be. Similar to the inside, we can take what's going on the inside with the placard and put it on the outside if that's the consensus and desire, yes, sir. That
I
can
mean,
be-
we're already referring to it as Moss Center or something similar to that.
Yes, sir.
Could we not so indicate that? I'm just afraid that once we start that process of putting in glorious letters,
Sure.
the name of a building,
Sure.
I don't want us to get into that.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, I was
Yes,
gonna say, you're 100% right about, once you start putting signs up, everybody wants to put a sign up. So the proliferation of signage will be substantial.
Yes, sir.
If, what I've recommended, and I've sent it to each person in the council and some of the staff, and I probably should have sent it to more, is what we do in our business for every customer is we establish what's called a brand control document. And it allows all the different application of the particular brand, otherwise known as the name of the company, and how it can and cannot be used within a particular site. And so what I think we should do is go through that process of establishing a City of Columbia brand control document. It sounds overwhelming, but it's not. It takes very little time just to get everybody on the same page as to what's allowed and what isn't. For example, in this particular case, if we so decide you could have a name on the outside, you gotta have a certain size of the name, not too big, not too small. If you wanted, you could have it on the inside, you could have, so it just details what the sign should look like in every application, because we know all too well, somehow we've ended up with a whole bunch of different looking signs. And even, as we speak, the Finley Park sign that got sent to me, and it don't look like nothing I've ever seen before in Columbia. So I think we just need to get this street naming thing behind us and focus then on City of Columbia signage guidelines and regulations, otherwise known as what we call the brand control
Brand
document.
control.
And I think if we do that, it'll really just structure what we're trying to do. And we want people to be engaged in their communities. So I don't think anybody's saying that's not what we want. We just want to do it the right way without more people getting their feelings hurt and other people saying, somebody got this and I didn't get this. And, his letter is 2 inches bigger than mine. So I think if we can go through this process and quickly put something together, just like we did with this, and quickly organize what we want and what we don't want.
Great.
You okay with that, Henry?
Yeah, I'm good with that. Just for clarity, we do have standard exterior signage of a park. For example, the Hyatt Park sign has a city seal with the name of the park.
I
But
get all
there'd be any parks that there's a standard sign for the
I think what I'm
exterior.
talking about is when we go into
Into the
this
building.
I'm
custom.
talking about the
Yeah,
specifics.
the customization of the signage when it comes to naming and things like that.
So yeah, with the exterior we do, with the exterior park we do, and the standard right now on the inside, if there's a dedication or naming of a building, what's currently done is a standard placard that we have across the city that has the name of the person, whatever it is, and it has the council at that time, the seated council at that time endorses that we do have that standard on the inside.
I think it's just as important for everybody, including council, including the citizens, to understand
Sure.
the guidelines so they can.
And
do a
how we
better-
do it,
yep,
how we-
and they can do a better job of how they are a part of this process, so.
Cause you see, initially back during when we did this thing back in 2017, of course, I think it was unanimous that the council at that time approved what they've done there at Hyde Park. Is that right?
Well, that was done for Leroy Moss back in 96,
In 96?
1996.
Gee
Yes, sir.
whiz.
That's been done.
Been naming lots of buildings for a long time.
Well, Henry, I think we could very well look at this control.
I'd be happy just to work with you,
Sure.
as, like I said, that's what I do for a living, and that's what you guys do for a living. So I think we can probably do something and have it presentable to this committee
Can we
before the end of the year.
Yeah, can we do that, Henry? And I would simply ask if we could do something similar to that we deferred right now.
Yeah.
And we come up with a process and with a process that will give us the specifics of what that's all about.
Sure.
Now, I must admit, I'd like to see brand control, but I'm also stuck on the notion that we just put a plaque on the outside of the building. But I want to make sure that no feelings are hurt and that folk in the community sort of sense
Sure.
that this is a collaborative effort and not one singularly made by any one of us.
Agreed.
Sure.
So the branding control document, which, like you said, shouldn't be too difficult because you already have
Right there, right.
standards
That's
already.
correct.
And then it can go along with the renaming policy
Yep.
in the application, so it's one packet altogether.
I think so.
So everybody will understand what the expectation is the placard will be a certain size with certain lettering.
Yep, and I'm
And
happy
we
to
can
get
make
Henry can
pictures.
come over to Colite one day and we can, he can work with one of my guys and we'll knock it out probably in one afternoon.
And what we do is just bring this back to this committee to sort of perfect the document.
Yep.
Is that okay?
That's fine.
All right. Yes, ma'am.
I don't want to further muddy the waters. I think everything y'all just said is exactly right.
Go to the mic,
Sounds
Ms. Wilson.
good. It'll be really quick. I just wanted to remind, so Mr. Brown is also aware, because he and I have discussed the brand control document in the context of the overarching marketing and
Yes,
communications,
correct.
right?
Which I think at some
that
point, this may be more temporary.
might be another
Yeah.
little element
It might be
of
a
that.
step
Right.
towards another
And-
step,
and
right?
that's
I
coming
totally
up
agree.
in your committee, which is
Which
very
I-
soon.
Which I just think what's happening is, my anxiety, I'm glad that the chairman brought this up about the street naming. My anxiety of doing nothing
Yes.
is worse than my anxiety of doing something, even if we have to redo it at some future point.
But they're all, the signage
I
issues.
totally agree.
still,
And I think-
with
I
the
think-
hospitality districts,
Yes.
that one's coming up in your.
I know,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Trust
That's
me,
coming up.
well aware.
Okay, so so the bottom line, of course, is that we're gonna take this notion, the branding control document, and you and Henry are going to work with this, Peter?
Sure.
Yep. And at a latter date, we'll come back with the document itself.
Yes, sir.
I think we might be able to have it by the next meeting.
All right, that sounds all right? We
Sounds
okay?
good. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And then Reverend McDowell, at that time, would you
The other-
want to entertain the applications to be submitted for the Virginia Lee Bedford, the possibility of that at the Earlwood Community Center and the Sarah Nance Cultural
Can we hold that
Resources Center?
until,
Yes, sir, until you get the signage
Yes,
and the
ma'am.
branding.
Yep, that'll be
Yes.
the next meeting after that one.
yes, ma'am. If we could do that, I wanted to particularly hold that after having this conversation.
Yes, sir.
And there's
Yes,
no
sir.
need in doing that now, and we gotta go back and change it.
Yes, sir. Just didn't want them to think we forgot about them.
No, ma'am, I didn't forget.
So we're still
Thank you.
thinking
Not
of
forgetting
them and
about
their
nobody.
requests.
Thank you, Ms.
That's
Bennett.
right. Yes, sir.
All right, Pam, go ahead. Hospitality.
Yes, sir. So the next on the agenda was the consideration of arts representative on the Hospitality Tax Advisory Committee. This was brought to us by Councilwoman Herbert. She wanted to make sure we didn't lose sight of the fact that back in, I think it was 2003, and she gave us an email. During the Arts Council Committee meeting, they received an update on the Arts Task Force final report that was done in 2003. And so along in that document, it outlines the Arts Task Force kind of morphed into what's now the Hospitality Tax Committee. And so
11 members.
before we get to that part, just historically, kind of how the committee got created is kind of what the reference I'm making. So, and now we have Missy Kaufman here and Tina Saxon, because they work very closely with the Hospitality Tax Committee. And this is the email that Councilwoman Herbert sent to Ms. Shanique. And so I asked both of them to be in attendance today because they know a lot of the history of the Arts Task Force final report, asking for there to be some arts representation on the Hospitality Tax Committee and how this has kind of evolved. Miss, I don't know if you wanna speak, if you can speak a little bit to that history before we get into talking about adding the arts representative, because I think that's where Ms. Herbert is coming from, is that representation was outlined in this Arts Task Force final report, which has morphed into now the Hospitality Tax Committee, and let's kind of like put it all in perspective historically.
Absolutely. So Tina Saxon and I have been involved with the hospitality tax since its intermittently since its existence in the city. Not dating us, but it's been around for a little minute. And the original committee, Tina did a lot of research going back to council meetings with Erica and Ms. Pam, and the original committee was born out of the accommodations tax committee when the city first established the hospitality tax itself. Started with the hospitality tax. The first committee was basically the accommodations tax. They rolled into it, and then they formed their own committee. The Arts Task Force had a study that was done that sort of was timed right at when the original committee was being set. From what Tina has found and what we've looked at and noticed, there was a recommendation for an arts position, but not an official. As you have now, you have a certain type of seat must be held by restaurateurs and so forth and things like that. There's not been an official arts position. There's been a reference to an arts position. And of course, there have been representatives on the committee that served in an arts role. Your current makeup has one representative on the actual voting committee itself that is from the arts community. And then you had an ex officio member who was, of course, that would be John Whitehead, had been serving the committee, and he was, of course, coming from the arts background. So I think the question is whether to codify, if you will, an arts and culture position on the committee, in the committee structure.
So what you're
officially.
saying is there could be somebody on there, but it's not guaranteed.
It's not designated
Designated,
specifically.
okay.
Yes.
Right.
Which-
And
which-
if
and
you'd like to designate a person, you certainly could do that by changing the composition of the committee and actually specifically writing out that there's someone from the arts community that's on that committee. In your packet, Reverend McDowell,
got this.
there's an example
Yeah.
of a possible wording change. You got so much paper.
Is there some reason we wouldn't want the person, if we did this, to not have voting rights?
Well, one of the things we talked about, of course, when we reorganized our agencies and boards, of course, ex officio was taken out.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yes, sir.
It would seem to me, instead of an ex officio, we look at an advisory position, designated voice and no vote.
If that's one, you all make up the composition, so you could certainly have a voting member to change or have that person be an advisor. So I think, yes, sir, after our discussion, your recommendation was to lean towards having an advisor that was non-voting,
That's
but
correct.
that would remain to provide,
So that would be
Some
11
support.
11 council
So
members,
you got
11
11
committee
members.
members, 5 that are restaurateurs,
six.
6 that are at large, and then 1 non-voting advisor.
That's correct. Voice
So
and,
there's 6 restaurateurs and 5 at large.
yes, 6, that's correct.
My only concern is that that person won't feel an equal member of the committee. Primarily because they won't have a vote. So,
So would you prefer to adjust this? We had some other language where we talked about either reducing, one of the members, you could change it for 5 restaurateurs and 6 at large, with one of the 6 being a member of the arts and cultural community or.
Well, the other side of that, Pam, is wouldn't it be contingent upon who that person might be and the wisdom he or she brings to the table?
I think that's part of the purpose for having either primarily the ex officio and now or an advisor type role was to advise the committee on matters related to the cultural world, of course, but doesn't necessarily have a vote in terms of the applications themselves.
Well, because of our structure and because we have eliminated ex officio.
Correct.
I don't want to use that word in a way where it gives credence to voice and vote. I guess my position is, and the thing that I'm sort of wrestling with is the advisory position.
Okay.
Allowing that person to have no vote, but perhaps if you've got voice, perhaps
Influence.
talking to others,
I think that's fair. I think that makes sense.
talking to others about what positions could be
Sure.
as it relates to hospitality tax.
It's somewhat like a technical advisor.
Yeah, right. So I think the right word, I like that. It's influence. Your
It's
ability
influence.
to state your case and have a seat at the table.
That's right.
Okay,
Yeah,
I can
yeah,
live with that.
That's right.
Okay.
So it'd be an additional person?
No, it won't be an additional person. It'll be part of the 11, right?
So you'd have one of the 11 or an addition, I think that's the question, do you want
We-
11 with an
We were saying
advisor?
that it would be an additional person, not an additional voting person, but you'd
Just an
have
additional.
12. You'd have 12 people total,
Okay,
11 voting, one
one-
advisor.
all right, that's fine. That's fine, because see, I was looking at it totally different. I was looking at the 11 with an advisor included.
All right, so we're gonna go
So we
add
go,
add an advisor for the arts.
so we still straight with 11,
Yeah.
Peter,
Absolutely.
one advisor.
And the advisor comes from the arts and
That's
cultural
correct.
community.
That's correct.
Right. The only other issue we have is the dates and the reappointment dates. And I don't know if that's the point to bring up here is our committee, the expiration date of our existing committee
You got that?
is May. And so that might be taken up as we do the next reappointments.
They all end in.
They all end in May, but then also too, literally that's around the same week in which they are doing their voting. So they would be doing their service or ending their service right when they're,
How all of them get the same, we got the same date?
Because council voted at one point to defer additional appointments and to approve the slate that we already had. So, and that was a motion that was made, so they voted to just approve all the people that are already on there. And that's why they got one date, one,
How we do
appointment
that?
date.
So what you have in front of you is
Yes.
some suggestions that Ms. Saxon and Ms. Kaufman have. We certainly can bring it back to you all as a council with some recommendations on a methodology for determining, you know, whose term completely ends, you know, and when the terms end and all of that, because like Missy said, this is gonna catch them in the middle of voting for on the applications, and then their terms will end, so that's gonna be problematic. So we can draft something, some staff recommendations on how to kind of work our way out of this, and then we can bring it back to the committee.
and
for you to-
stagger them so that there's some continuity there,
Should do it
which
like,
serves a
right,
benefit.
you could do it like the Senate, where, you know, only a third of the people leave at any given time.
Or council.
Yeah, right, it's just
So
like
you're
council.
not, right. So there's some continuity there too,
Yeah, so
which
you
is
could do it on-
beneficial when reviewing the applications, especially since they really meet one time a year.
What's the time parameter, Missy?
Ideally, we would really like to have the appointments done by January.
Okay.
And on a
All right.
reoccurring basis, either January or July, so that it's
Okay.
outside of the grant process and allows us time to onboard them with training. And then also too, gives the time to obviously schedule
Let's,
several days out of their, the application process is usually over several days. And so that's a lot to ask somebody to give up in time.
well, we got some wiggle room.
Yes, sir.
All right, if we could do that, and of course, sharing that information and configuring a way. I mean, gee whiz, when I look at 2024, everybody
all
sits
rolling
down
off.
or stands up.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So
And
we can bring back some recommendations, because that's not gonna work. If everybody
Yeah,
rolls
it's not-
off at the same
not gonna
time,
work.
that's gonna be kind of
Is there a
difficult.
chairperson of the Hospitality Tax Committee?
There is. And they self-appoint their committee, correct?
From the committee, right?
The committee self-appoints the
Yeah,
chairperson.
all right. Okay, Missy, if we could do that, that will give us some wiggle room between now and January.
Yes, sir.
Can we do that?
So we'll have to make sure that we do the appointments in well,
It's
because we
gotta
have
be
one
December.
council meeting in November, and then we have 2 in December.
You could do the appointment in January too.
Yeah,
For the appointment, we can talk through it between now and what time in January now?
I'd say that'd be up to the.
Well, it'll be up to
Schedule.
whenever we get done, right?
Sure.
Okay. Can we do that? Peter, what you think?
Yes, sir.
All right.
we'll have it dated, so you'll know like which meeting it should come up on, and then you can and we'll have a whole packet for you
Sounds
in our
good.
next meeting.
Are we meeting on November 7th?
No,
I get voting day off?
All right.
We meeting so we're just skipping the whole meeting?
Just skip it all.
Just the third week? Not the second week, the third week. Got it, okay.
21st, okay. All right, we said,
Yes, sir.
Missy? Ms. Benjamin?
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Let me thank you all for being here today. Ms. Felicia, thank you all. We look forward to what takes place in January. What we've unconditionally done today is to do, while we've done all of this, we're going to recommend dropping the moratorium on honorary street naming. Is that right?
yes, sir,
And the other things are being referred back to us.
yes, sir.
All right? Thank y'all so much. Y'all have a good day. May his blessings be upon you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Felicia, make sure I'm invited to that.
Absolutely, we will be.